Earlier this week, I released my Kerbal Space Program 1.12 preview in which I accidentally had Jeb crash on Eeloo. Luckily, I gave him a base to sit in while awaiting rescue, but then, in one blunderous act, I completely forgot to go ahead and actually rescue Jebediah from the Eeloo base, and we need Jebediah back on Kerbin because he's Jebediah. We need him to oversee all of our main missions. So guys, I sat there and I scratched my head wondering, who could I possibly call in such a scenario? Any ideas? Anything? Wait a second!
On a lonely planet slowly spinning its way to damnation, amid the incompetence and unpreparedness of lesser space programs, one team stands resilient against the herds, putting their lives on the line to aid those who are previously unaware of the quick-save option. Yes, it's the incredible adventures of Jebediah and his crack team of Kerbinauts. They are the Blunderbirds. Saving the Kerbin race one stranded explorer at a time.
That's right, how could I possibly pass up on an opportunity to revisit the Blunderbirds? It's been quite some time since we've done a Blunderbirds episode, and I'm always getting comments saying, why have you cancelled Blunderbirds? In fact, whenever I don't do a series week on week with nothing else until that series is finished, I'll always just get comments saying, you know, has this series ended? Why has it been cancelled? I can guarantee in the comments below that there are people saying, why has Space Race Speedrun been cancelled? Even though, like, it was just last week. I don't want to do the same thing every week. We've got to have breaks every now and then. Anyway, that was a weird divergence. Here we are, revisiting the Blunderbirds. We're going to go to Eeloo and rescue Jebediah from the predicament that I admittedly basically deliberately put him in, but I'm going to try and right those wrongs that I did earlier this week. So my Eeloo ship is definitely very much overbuilt. For some reason I had in my head that I needed 8,000 meters or 8 kilometers of Delta V to do an Eeloo return with a little bit of margin to spare, but it turned out I massively overestimated this. I think we ended up with like 2,000 meters per second of Delta V remaining at the end of the mission. But I really wanted to make sure that my actual Eeloo vessel was one monolithic structure, not just like an asparagus setup, which would have been more compact, but would have meant that we'd have dumped empty fuel tanks throughout the solar system, cluttering up space, which is something that I try and always avoid doing on this channel whenever I can help it. Now, ordinarily, when I design ships that are going to go to the outer solar system, so kind of like Dres, Jool, and Eeloo, etc., when I'm doing ships that are going to go that far away from the sun, I generally use RTGs as the primary power source because solar panels, they're not very effective that far away from the sun. But I couldn't help but use the new solar panels that were added in Kerbal Space Program 1.12 for the main mothership, just because A, they're very big, so they do actually provide decent electric charge that far away from the sun, and also because this is a good opportunity to showcase the new parts. Although if you've not seen my KSP 1.12 preview video, then first of all, this video's whole setup and reason for existence is probably a little bit confusing, but also you might not be fully aware of all the little improvements and upgrades that this update came with, so I wholeheartedly urge you to check that out. I probably put a card on screen earlier, so there's a link in the description if you want to click that. Maybe, can you do a card of the same video like multiple times? Anyway, we'll know. If I can, it's on the top right of the screen, but don't hold me to that. But yeah, we're coming to the end of the build of this craft, and as I say, the transfer stage is very overbuilt, but I kind of like that in a way because I will be putting this craft in the description for you to download, and hey, that means that if you are less efficient than I am when conducting your burns, you can rest easy knowing that this does have a surplus of Delta V to compensate for any kind of mismaneuvers or slightly inefficient burns, etc. So you know that it has a little bit of extra capability built into it for you. I did it for you, Jonathan. Hopefully, I probably freaked someone out for a second just then. I don't know. I'm just stalling for time now because the build is pretty much done, and I'm just doing little bits of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, etc. until we fade across to the launch, which is 3, 2, 1 now. There it is on the launch pad. Oh, I added a flag to the side, but I guess I didn't need to show that in the time lapse, did I? Now, I don't have my beautiful visual mods installed at the moment because I wanted to kind of keep my Kerbal Space Program install clean of all mods just for this video and the my update video to showcase kind of what Kerbal Space Program stock looks like now, particularly because we're going to Eeloo, which has of course received a significant graphical upgrade. So by not having any visual mods installed, you know that this is like definitely Oh, never mind. We're going through clouds. They're not in the game. Okay, forget what I said. I thought I'd uninstalled my mods. Clearly, I'd forgotten to uninstall Astronomer's Visual Pack or Environmental Visual Enhancements. One of them. Oh, and there's cities. Okay, forget what I said. It's very late, actually, okay? I've had a busy day, guys. You have no idea the kind of day I've had because I went to work, right? I finished work at 5:30, and recently I've been trying to cycle to work because I'm trying to lose my COVID gut that sort of happened over 2020. Can we still say that word? Is that still like a banned word for monetization? Well, it's too late now. Let's. I've been cycling to work to try to get some calories burned, and I signed up to a June cycling challenge on Strava to do a certain number of kilometers in a month. So I've been cycling to work to kind of get my miles up there, and I've also been doing very long detours after leaving work. Like today I did my commute, just going back and forth from my house to work, is I think it's like 12 kilometers, but today I did 35 kilometers. I really stretched it out to get some exercise in. I went across Dartmoor, which is the national park near me, and I went down some trails, but we are in the middle of summer in England, and I'm very, very allergic to everything. I have terrible hay fever, terrible seasonal allergies, so if I sound really bunged up or nasally or whatever, it's because of that. So sorry if my voice does not sound as if my voice sounds even more nasal than it normally does. Okay, so now we're in low Kerbin orbit, by the way. I decided to try and test the maneuver tool to get a course plotted to Eeloo. So here we go. We're going to create a maneuver node, and it's in 1 year and 7 days, which is a bit of a bummer, really, because I didn't show this because when I was... Do you remember at the beginning of the video, I showed footage of Jebediah stuck in his base? I then cut away to the Blunderbirds intro, but when I was recording that footage, I set up an alarm clock widget thing. Yeah, I used the alarm clock app to set an alarm for the optimum Kerbin to Eeloo transfer window, and I waited for that to run its course. The alarm went off, and that's when I launched this mission. And now the maneuver node maker is saying I've got to wait 1 year and 7 days. So I said, enough! I've waited for the perfect transfer window. If the maneuver node maker can't do it itself, then I'll just do it. I'll do it myself. Basically, that was a very long-winded explanation. Hopefully, some semblance of that sentence made sense at some point. Hopefully, I hit all the right points. But that's why I attempted to use the Maneuver Maker to show off this part, this new addition to Kerbal Space Program, but I was unsuccessful. Probably I need to just figure out the nuances between the Alarm Clock app and the Maneuver Node Maker app. There's probably a way you can set a certain delay on the Alarm Clock alarm so that you have enough time to launch your vessel while still being able to take advantage of the transfer window, and you can use the maneuver maker. It's a lot to unpack. Okay, I've only just had the update myself, so, and you guys should have it as well. I think it goes live on the 24th of June. So you guys should definitely have it now. And at this point, Time Warp kept dropping out, and I realized there were just loads of alarms that suddenly manifested in my alarm clock list. Not sure what happened there, but here we are at Apoapsis. You can see I've still got that upper stage attached to our Kerbin to Eeloo ship, I guess, because I added a little bit of extra Delta V into it so that we could do the first part of our burn to Eeloo using that stage to save some of the Delta V in our nuclear transfer stage, which, as I said earlier, was actually unnecessary. We've got way too much Delta V in that stage. But again, if you want to use this rocket by downloading it in the description, you can rest easy knowing that it definitely has way more Delta V than you really need for this mission. So, yeah, we're going to separate the two stages. That lower stage does have a probe core, batteries, and an RTG, I think, inside it, and some parachutes so that it can land itself and not get left in space. Do not worry, the space polar bears are safe for another day. People get mad that I don't call them the solar bears. I love that name, but it's the space polar bears, guys. Let's not be insensitive and joke about a very serious conservation issue right now. As you can see, I'm currently reconfiguring my ship. I've got a very Apollo-esque setup where the lander was positioned below the command pod unit during launch, and then we can just reconfigure it so that it's attached to the top of the stack for our transfer to Eeloo, just to expand the space inside the spacecraft. We've got that command module, we have the lander, so that's kind of very much increased the size of the area at the top of the stack. We've also got those two, the Mark II. Isn't the Mark II fuselage? This is right. You'd think I would know the names of parts in Kerbal Space Program right now. I'm sure it's the Mark II cargo bays. Cargo bays? No. Crew pods, crew modules. One of them. Select as appropriate. The crew modules on the side, they're completely not needed because we've only got 2 Kerbals for our journey to Eeloo, and we'll only have 1 extra when we return from Eeloo. They're just there to add a little layer of realism to this craft. Like, it's going to be a very long journey to Eeloo, and so, you know, it would make sense to have our Kerbals in stasis or something, so we can just pretend that those 2 modules on the side are stasis pods, or I guess, you know, board game rooms, a bar. There's a tennis court inside one of them. Something to kind of give the Kerbals a bit more room to move around in during their long voyage to Eeloo. I'll leave it up to your imagination to decide what those components are used for. Now, I couldn't get an Eeloo encounter directly from low Kerbin orbit, so I'm going to have to make a minor course correction here. When I was planning the maneuver nodes, this was supposed to be 44 meters per second of delta V, but that somehow grew to just under 200 meters per second. But again, it's fine. We've got more than enough delta V, so I was okay splashing out some fuel budget on doing our correction burn here. If it meant we got a nice Eeloo encounter, then I'm just creating a quick maneuver node to make sure we've definitely got enough delta V to circularize. That's going to be one of the biggest expenses of this mission, is our circularization around Eeloo, because not only do we need to raise our solar periapsis to be at the level of Eeloo, which is effectively what circularization is, but we've also got to do an inclination change. Eeloo is tilted in its orbit relative to Kerbin, as you can see, because you can sort of see from this overview of the solar system map, by the way, that it's a bit skewed from the orbital paths of the rest of the planets. We've now cut away, but we will be cutting back to the map screen at some point once I've done this burn. There, you can see that Eeloo is sort of shifted a bit to the right in terms of this perspective, at least in terms of this perspective on the map screen. What am I even talking about? It's been a long day, guys. I'm very ill. I feel weak. Actually, quite frankly, I've been like, does anyone else have these seasonal allergies? I remember when I was younger, my mum took me to because my mum was very concerned that I was always bunged up and was just always ill, basically. So she took me to have an allergy test at the hospital. And in these allergy tests, what they do is they use a very scientific medical instrument called a biro, and they draw this like grid on your arm, and they prick each square on the grid with an allergen. By the way, I just did a crossfade there because I don't have better time warp installed, and it literally took ages to time warp up to Eeloo. Like, it literally took about 10 minutes real time. I sped up the footage 12 times normal speed, and it still was just unbearably slow, so I just did a clock wipe just then. But yes, and then every square on this grid on my arm was pricked with an allergen related to hay fever and seasonal allergies, that sort of thing. And they're expecting that like a couple of squares would just have it develop like a little pimple or a little bit of swelling or something, and that would tell them that, okay, you're allergic to this, this, and this. We should give you this medication. Now, fast forward 15 minutes after having these tests done, and my arm has just ballooned to like double the size. I could barely even like move my fingers. and they just take one look at it and saying, yeah, basically you're just allergic to everything. So there you are, guys. Fast forward, I don't know, 15 years. I'm allergic to everything outside, so now I'm a professional YouTuber. Did that work out? I don't know. If you want to see some cycling videos that I've made, by the way, I've been posting them somewhat intermittently on my second channel, Lowne 2, which I don't advertise ever, actually, because I barely post to it, and now it's just the cycling channel. But I've been posting some like GoPro time-lapse footage of my bike rides, and I enjoy watching them a lot. And I'm basically the only person that enjoys watching them. I think I sometimes try and show my girlfriend them, and she's like, oh, it's cool, well, whatever. And then I'm just like, oh, let's watch it again, it was great. Maybe because I've got nice memories associated to it. I don't know, I'm just sort of waffling here whilst I accidentally switched to Jebediah rather than set him as my target. I'm just stalling for time now whilst we get to the meat and potatoes, the peanut butter oil of the video, which is the actual landing. I feel like this is one of the things, speaking as a person that is like not a viewer of Blunderbirds, because I don't watch my videos, I just get some guy to edit them for me. I don't even play Kerbal Space Program. I just play Beat Saber, that's all I play. No, I kid, of course. Speaking as a non-viewer of Blunderbirds, I have this skewed perspective of the person that makes it, and I'm just trying to sort of accommodate what I think people like from this series. I feel like one of the main draws of this series is seeing the actual landing procedure, because I'm landing at a very specific spot on a planet or moon to rendezvous with a surface base or stranded Kerbal or something like that, what have you. And I remember back in the day when I was a new player, and things like this just seemed like wizardry to me. Like, people say like, oh Matt, why can't I be as good at Kerbal Space Program as you are? And dear viewer, you are definitely better than I was when I was at the stage in the Kerbal Space Program career that you are now. Kerbal Space Program did not come naturally to me at all. I was awful. Like, 100 hours in, I was still having to intermittently just check Scott Manley videos on basic things like how to land on Minmus. I was it took me, I was like 150 hours in before I even rendezvoused something. Like, do not worry if you're I don't want to say intimidated, that sounds like really arrogant and narcissistic, but if you're like seeing what I'm doing and thinking, wow, this is like not possible, like I'll never be as good as this. Again, this sounds super arrogant and whatever, like really the stuff you're seeing in this video is not, you know, a real test of skill or whatever, or like as a okay, this is now coming full circle and now it's going the other way. But I'm just saying, like, if you ever see a YouTube video of anyone, not just me, playing Kerbal Space Program, thinking how I'll never be at that level, do not worry. We all sucked at this game at some point. Everyone sucked at Kerbal Space Program. It's a very, very difficult game. So I don't know what really started this tangent, really. I think it was something along the lines of, oh, let's wait until I get to my landing on Eeloo and I can talk about that, because that's what I think is what people want to see in these videos. And look at that. I've just waffled and tangented, that's a verb, right, my way through that entire process, and now I'm just doing my orbital rendezvous again. Rather frustratingly, trying to talk about the footage at least once in this video, the Delta V readout just disappeared from the lander. So I had no idea if I actually had enough fuel to rendezvous. I thought I did, because I was just keeping an eye on the liquid fuel and oxidizer levels, and it looked like the rate at which those were draining, it seemed like I would have enough Delta V, but I wasn't quite sure. And the margins were definitely close. I mean, I did like look at how much Delta V this lander had before I incorporated it into this vessel. I was like, okay, this has enough Delta V in a vacuum to do what I needed to do. But it was still a bit of a nerve-wracking experience to seeing those fuel levels get as close as they did. Now it comes to our rendezvous, and I thought I'm not going to do the Lowne lazy method of docking because that's too easy. Let's dock properly. And then I forgot to disable auto SAS at the very critical moment of dock, and everything went wrong. So I had to quickly undo all of that and then redock. Luckily, that Mark II lander can has loads and loads of monopropellant inside it, so I had loads of opportunity to redo the docking attempt as many times as I pleased. And if I wanted to, I could rotate those docking ports to get the windows of the Mark II lander can and the Mark I-3. Is that what it's called? Lander, like Apollo style command pod aligned, but at this point I'm just going to detach that lander. I'm going to burn retrograde, detach that lander can so it crashes into the surface of Eeloo, and then we can quickly burn prograde again with our mothership to make sure we don't meet a similar fate. Yes, is it the Mark I-3? I've never ever known what that part is called. I've always just said, oh, it's the Apollo style command pod, and I feel like I really should know what it's called. And I remember like proof watching. Like, when I say proof watching, like when I post these videos, I do actually, believe it or not, there is some quality control on this channel. I do proof watch the video, and I noticed that, like, I never seem to know what it is. So I'm actually going to look at the name of that part and remember it. And I'm sure it said Mark 1-3 command pod. So I hope now that is correct, and I'm not just going completely mad over my allergies. I'm sure that's what it was called. Anyway, as you may have seen, it was very, very quick. I have sped this footage up a little bit to keep the video at a somewhat digestible length. I attempted to use the Maneuver Node Maker app to plot a course back from low Eeloo orbit to Kerbin, and it couldn't do it because my orbit around Eeloo was apparently too inclined. Apparently you've got to be basically equatorial or only just deviated from equatorial. So again, I had to do things myself. So I guess that's kind of in a way, it's kind of good news, because one of my fears, or I don't know if it's fear or if it's just me being a boomer, but one of my fears is like, wow, you could just plot a maneuver like very, very easily to the point where you haven't really got to think about it. So you never really learn how transfers work or anything because you now have an app that just does it all for you. But based on what I've learned from this video, the app doesn't really work all that well. I'm so sorry, squad. I'm very grateful the fact you gave me this copy of the game early. Like, I'm recording this on the 22nd of June, which this version of the game hasn't even come out yet. So I'm extra mindful of that. But I just haven't had that much success with the Maneuver Node Maker app. Now, I'm aware it's only just been added, and I'm yet to kind of really understand its nuances. But for this video, I just felt that, like, every time I needed to make a maneuver node, it was just much easier to just make it myself. And maybe that's the point. You know, we don't want to get too reliant on our robot overlords, lest we succumb when the great apocalypse arises. But yes, I just found that making my own maneuver nodes was the only feasible way of doing this mission on this particular occasion. Maybe I messed something up with my alarm clock when it came to planning our Kerbin to Eeloo transfer window, but I don't know, actually. That's it. I think I pretty much said everything I needed to say with that, and I kept on saying but, expecting for me to just continue this stream of consciousness, and I just hit a wall. What can I say? Here is our maneuver. Here is my Kerbin encounter. There it is, and now you know. Thank you everyone for watching my very detailed tutorial video in which I show you exactly how to do a Kerbin to Eeloo mission. This was a 100%. I really hope no one actually clicked this saying like, oh, I wonder how to get to Eeloo. I'm really struggling. Let's just type in Eeloo mission Kerbal Space Program. Oh, this is by Matt Lowne. Let's click this. I hope that didn't happen, because this has been a terrible video to try and learn how to get to Eeloo. What have I even talked about? I talked about the fact that I'm trying to do more cycling and exercise in general, because I'm a bit conscious of the fact that I'm very unfit. So I've been playing some Beat Saber, cycling, etc. And then I talked about how I'm just allergic to everything. And then, I don't know, I think I just blacked out in parts of the video, to be honest. It's all a bit of a blur. Anyway, here we are re-entering. So okay, good. It's coming to an end. You may have noticed a weird orbital path around Kerbin. That was the upper stage of our rocket. I never actually deorbited it, but I will deorbit it at some point. And then, oh my goodness, you guys, you suck, okay? No, this isn't a joke. I am mad, okay? Because I said in my Apollo video that like nose cone piece with the fairings, you can't put parachutes in it because it won't let you deploy them. And everyone replied saying, no, you can. It's possible now. And so I said, right, I'm going to listen to my viewers. They're clearly pretty smart. They're subscribed to me. I'm going to put some parachutes in this piece and we can just deploy them. And Robert's your father's brother, we can land. And no, they wouldn't deploy because it said they can't deploy while they're stowed, even though I deployed the fairing shroud. So, guys, you've let me down. You've let Jebediah, Valentina, and Bill Kerman down. But most of all, guys, I think you've let yourselves down there. And that's my video. That's the end of the video on that somber note. I have no idea. And there's some patrons scrolling past who donate to this channel for some reason. No, I'm very grateful for their continued support of this channel, and thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to join the list of Patreon names on screen, you can click the link in the description or on screen. You can also join the channel by clicking the join button below the video. Anyway, bye.